We are back, and we are back for the first episode of the Shutdown Inning in May 2023. Steven Risotto here with Tylor Hall, as always. Tyler, what's going on?
Hey, what's up, everybody? How you doing, Steven? Yeah, we're a month into the season now. Here we go. We're off to the races.
Off to the races, and this stuff flies by. Like it feels like
Yeah,
opening week was just yesterday, and I know that's such a cliche thing to say, but like baseball, I think more than any other sport, the opening like festivities and everything wears off very quickly. And now I think you're going
yeah.
to start to see teams looking in at the standings and stuff, but um
Yeah, it's like kind of that we're at that time now where like people like your reaction just kind of go, "Oh, it's still early." And then you're like, "Oh, wait, we're like 30 games into this now." And I think now right now it's probably more like from the player standpoint if a guy is really struggling, like, okay, he's a month in now. Teams, in there a little bit, but still, 130 games to turn it around. But yeah, you can't really say it's early still anymore once you turn that calendar to May.
yeah, and like a lot of baseball people I've heard the past few weeks that Memorial Day is kind of the the time where you could stop saying it's early still. I hate hearing it's early still. But I also like, and I think I've used it on the show before, but I like the saying you can't win a World Series in April, but you could lose one. And
Yeah.
like that, I mean, I don't know if you've seen the standings recently, but there are teams that are on track for just pure chaos in terms of bad baseball. Just some awful team. Like the A's are on track for like
I mean,
125 losses. I mean, there's a few teams like that.
yeah, I mean, last I looked, the A's were on track for like 32 wins.
Christ.
Last time I like did the math, and I was just like, oh man, like in case their situation couldn't get any worse. And a friend of mine reached out the other day and was like, "Is it is it too early to like start tracking the A's for catching the what is it like 63 Mets and 03 Tigers, or I think are the two worst teams in history.
Mhm.
Yours might be off just a little bit there, but like he's like, is it too early? I was like, when you're on pay, once you've played like 30 games and you're on pace for 30 wins, like yeah, you can say, okay, are they going to win 60? Because I think that's kind of a fair question to ask. And so the A's are actually exactly at a 200 winning percentage right now.
Well, I mean, that's what happens.
That's they're on pace for 32.4 wins. Ah,
Yeah.
man, you hope they'll catch fire at some point, but they also have the lowest run differential by about double the next closest team.
Yeah,
It's
just
not
rough.
a lot to be happy about in Oakland right now. Uh, Looking at
We
some of the
dug
other
into the
teams,
A's. We dug into the
yeah,
A's kind of last episode
the
too.
Royals struggling. The surprisingly to me, the most surprising team that's struggling, like legit struggling, and not Yankees struggling where they're freaking out because they're only 2 games above 500. The Cardinals. What is
Yeah.
happening? Like, how do you have a team with Goldschmidt and Arenado and you're 10-21?
I don't know what has happened with them. I'm confused. Well, I do know what has happened with them. Their pitching has failed them. And Arenado has gone kind of on a 2 week hiatus with the bat a little bit. They
Mm-hmm.
haven't gotten great production out of their outfield. O'Neill, and I know Lars Nootbaar just got back. And Jordan Walker was not doing a half bad job, and they didn't really like stick with him. He got sent down. And Jordan Walker, aka the first guy in baseball that is younger than me. We shed light on that a few weeks ago.
Yeah.
But their pitching has just been horrendous. Like they don't have. I'm waiting for them to get a top of the line guy that is not named Adam Wainwright or Jordan Montgomery. I think they have like six quality starts and like four of them are from Jordan Montgomery, which you got to add some depth in that rotation, and
Yeah,
it's
I
not
mean,
happening.
yeah, it's head scratching to be honest. I'm just shocked. And then the kind of the on the other end of the spectrum there, we talked about how the Pirates are kind of shocking the world. Um, I think to a lesser extent, I mean, coach in the Rangers, they're in first place right now.
Hmm.
Most people probably picked the Astros in that division, or some maybe the Mariners. Um, like I said, it's still early, but it's those Texas Rangers are off to a good start too. I mean, obviously the Rays, who we've talked about, are playing stupid. They've only lost 6 games still. They have lost a couple at home now, so they might start getting booed at home. Um, but yeah, I mean, it is fun to kind of look at. All right, we're enough games into this where we can look and kind of see like what's happening.
Yeah, and I just did a quick dive on the Cardinals just real quick. The last time they finished under 500 was 2007.
Wow.
Crazy. So it's like
Yeah, I
part of their
mean,
brand to be good.
yeah, I mean, yeah, they're consistently they're one of the most consistent teams in baseball as far as putting at least a competitive team on the field, and they are this year, to an extent. So I wouldn't be surprised if they bounce back and finish, above 500, but didn't expect them to be in the same conversation as the A's or the Royals at this point.
Yeah. Essentially they flipped with the Cardinals or with the not with the Cardinals. They flipped spots with the Pirates. And we
Yeah,
talked about them too last week and they have a big name now re-signing there, which is kind of
yeah,
unexpected.
as we do here on the shutdown inning, we talk about something and then like a day or two later, it completely doesn't matter anymore. And we said, like, will they ever extend Bryan Reynolds? And literally, like, I think it was like 6 hours after we released the episode, Bryan Reynolds signs an 8-year, $106.75 million extension. You know, what was your reaction when you saw that news?
Yeah, I mean all I could think about is what we were talking about kind of in the winter about how he wanted to get traded. And the Pirates, when you're a team that has a player that is trying to get traded, I guess the next thing you have to do is prove to them why they should stay, especially if it's a good player like Bryan Reynolds. And they're certainly proving that they could build enough young players to make a competitive team. That it is early in the year. But I guess the goal here at the beginning was to get Bryan Reynolds on board with the plan. And the Pirates notoriously have not spent money. And here they are signing him to a rather team friendly deal. I don't know what he could have got on the open market, but um, it's good to see. It's good to see the Pirates spend money. They should be. And it's a really refreshing thing to see a player with an open mind go from, one side of the spectrum and wanting to be traded to the other side and wanting to stick to see how good the Pirates could be in the near future. So, I mean, I think I like loyalty in sports. I know it's often chaotic when guys are moving around and it's fun for fan bases to constantly get some transactions, but I like when players could kind of see the light even when their team is not going so well.
Yeah, definitely. And it is good to see a team like the Pirates lock down someone who's going to be the face of their franchise for almost a decade. Usually those are the teams that don't really have that identity, and I agree. I think it is pretty team friendly, especially for the level that he's played at over the last year and a half or so. I think it averages out to like 13 million a year. But it also, I think he was at least a couple years from free agency, I believe. So kind of takes any of that doubt, where he could get hurt and maybe never see that payday. Now he's financially set for the rest of his life, even if it is team friendly. And the Pirates are playing great baseball right now, and so now they have a building block that they could point at for years to come and say, we have guys that want to be here and that will be here. So it could be the start of something really special with the Pirates when you add in O'Neal Cruz, who will be back eventually this year. Brian Hayes, some of their young pitchers. I think Keller's having a really
Mhm.
solid year. So just hopefully a sign of things to come for the Pirates. They're one of those old school teams who hasn't really been good for a while, and so it'd be awesome to see their fan base have something to be excited about.
Absolutely. And just real quick on that fan base, from what I've heard, and I listen to a lot of baseball stuff throughout the week, and um, from what I hear, Pirates fans show up if there's a good product on the field. Like there is a good amount of Pirates fans in Pittsburgh that will pack out that ballpark. It's beautiful. It's a beautiful place to be. It's a great destination. And from what I heard from people, Pirates fans and all of that, they will come if a great product is put out on the field. And I think that goes for a lot of fan bases, but um, I hope we get to see PNC Park filled a little bit more this year than we have in years past. So, Fun.
Yeah, definitely. There are a few of those fan bases where like even if the team's really good, they are kind of just whatever. But yeah, they do have some really passionate fans, and I know the ballpark's beautiful. It's been on the top of my list. I've been to a little over half of the ballparks in baseball now, and number one on my list has been Pittsburgh to try to get to for a few years. It just hasn't happened yet. So hopefully whenever I do get to make it there, I get to watch a good Pirates team.
Heck yeah. And another, I guess, trip that maybe you could schedule, or maybe you don't want to schedule based on what we saw this past weekend, is the Mexico City trip, which apparently is going to come back to baseball. We just saw a matchup between the Giants and Padres in Mexico City, the first MLB game ever played in Mexico City. And MLB has said that they will return uh, to Mexico City next season with a different group, different teams. But from what we saw, and it was kind of expected, it was no surprise to see the ball absolutely flying in that series. It was
Yeah,
intense.
it's like a few thousand feet higher than Coors Field for some perspective. And on Saturday, I was actually at if for those brave enough to actually look at our faces on YouTube, Nevada baseball. I was up in Reno. One of my best friends growing up is head coach up there, so go Pack. But so I was only tracking the game on my phone on Saturday, and I was like, oh, a home run. Oh, another home run. Oh, two more home runs. Like every time I looked up at my phone, someone else had hit a home run. It was an unbelievable. And like, so after seeing that in the first game, the over under for the second game was like 20. It's like the highest over under ever for a baseball game, an MLB game at least. And the one thing I would like to see baseball consider, I don't know if I want this as a Giants fan, maybe they can do it with the teams next year, is like bring the same teams back to some of these locations and try to build a following for at least one or two of those teams. The NFL does it a lot. The Jacksonville Jaguars have played in London. They do like 3 games a year in London or 2 or 3 in the NFL. And I think every year for the last several, the Jaguars have had one of those games. I want to say one of the other teams has been pretty regular too. Because it's nice to give them like a series a year or whatever, but is that really going to gain that? They won't give them a team to follow. I think might be helpful, but I mean, the games were pretty damn entertaining, man. It was the ball was flying. Were you able to watch the games?
So on Saturday, I was actually, and this is a bummer. Well, not a well, a bummer on my part because
Oh,
I was at so I had my cousin got married in San Diego. In San Diego. So this was originally scheduled to be a Padres home game in San Diego. And I had plans to go down there and maybe cover one of the games in the series as my first official road trip as a writer. Um, and I was like, this is going to be great. And then they moved the series to Mexico City. So I was at a wedding, and before the wedding, the groom had not even been on the platform or whatever it's called at the altar. It wasn't in the church, so it's not an altar. But the groom hadn't even come out yet. He hadn't walked out yet, and I looked and there's a few home runs already. And then at the reception, more home runs. So did not
yeah,
get a chance to watch it. I followed the second game of the series coming back from San Diego. But I mean, there probably is some adjustments that need to be made. There's a lot of things that could go wrong. And I guess MLB is not opposed to watching home runs in a series like this where they're trying to get eyeballs on their sport, which is
mm-hmm.
why the whole humidor thing became a big story, where apparently the humidor was not as or not on the same level. It was a few levels below Coors Field, which why when Coors Field is high, lower elevation.
Yeah,
First of all, it's weird saying that Coors Field is lower elevation than another baseball park, but that's where we're at. And like the Giants players, and I'm sure Padres players too, like they came out of it not feeling great. I mean, we heard what Logan
yeah.
Webb said. He said that, a third of the team had the
He
shits.
said three quarters of the
Three quarter,
team.
even more had the shits. So they were
Yeah,
not feeling good. And there's other things that could go wrong. Obviously, we saw Alex Cobb in one of the games get a hydration, a second to hydrate, which is always good. Um, and Mike Yastrzemski had a hamstring pull, and who knows? Maybe something like that doesn't happen at sea level. But
I think I was kind of surprised they went up there. They're down there, I guess, for just 2 games. That's a lot of travel to put on some teams for 2 games. I mean, maybe have them play
Mhm.
three, at least 3. Maybe have them play 4 and split it. Call it 2 home games for each team. Make it worth the travel down there, and then that way you can potentially give them an off day on each end. Because
Mhm.
I didn't see if the Padres had to play on Monday, but the Giants had to leave Mexico City and play a game Monday, and it was in Houston, so close to the southern border there, but Mexico City is not near the border. It's down in like the middle of
Mhm.
Mexico. It's a flight. I saw some people on Twitter saying, I'm surprised they gave the Padres a home game, and it's like, well, no, yeah, like they're close to the west coast of Mexico, but they're not close to Mexico City. All the teams in Texas are closer. As the crow flies, like Miami might even be closer. So it was a travel for both teams to get down there.
Yeah.
Uh,
And San Diego was home. They were hosting the Reds, but I agree with you. I think it should be, you have that weird Friday off day. Okay, then, if you want to stick with the 2 games, or maybe you just have a Thursday off day like usual, then you have a 3-game set in Mexico City, then give those 2 teams the Monday off or something, to travel. And they tried to do it
yeah,
easy. Maybe that was MLB's thinking is let's put the Giants in Houston. Um,
yeah.
but then again, I don't know if they picked the teams before the schedule came out because the schedule was out before Mexico City was announced. Um,
Yeah, I'm sure they probably had a few series in mind from the
Mhm.
existing schedule to move down there. And yeah, I think they got to do something logistically to help those teams out. I know they have like a certain number of off days throughout the whole year, so it is tough to like have a team burn 2 off days, but and maybe have them start their season a little early or something and give them one extra as kind of a attaboy for traveling a few thousand miles out of
Mhm.
your way to get a game in for a series in for Major League Baseball. Major League Baseball benefits from those series more than either of the teams do. I mean, it's a cool
Mhm.
life experience, I'm sure, but you're not really going to convince a lot of teams if especially if they do it again next year and those teams have issues coming out of it.
Nobody's gonna want to do it.
They'll have to figure something out. Yeah, they'll have to figure something out for sure.
Yeah, and it the way offensively, like it's gonna hurt a bullpen too. Um, but yeah, it's cool, and I'm all for international baseball. I mean, we've talked at length about it during the WBC, how cool it is for MLB to go worldwide, and I think for the most part, the people in Mexico City said that it was great. The teams, aside from the downfalls that we mentioned, said it was great. The players said it was great. So, um, looking forward to more of these, I think for sure. Um,
Yeah, definitely.
and there was
But
a note there on
the
Xander Bogarts, right?
oh yeah, I don't know if you'd seen this before you had seen my note that I put on, but yeah, Xander Bogaerts became the first player to hit a major league home run in 4 different countries. He obviously is homered in the United States,
Canada.
Canada. He was part of the Yankees Red Sox games in London, and he homered there. So he homered in United Kingdom or Britain or whatever you want to call it, and then obviously then he homered as almost every other player did in Mexico. So four countries visited, 4 home runs for Xander Bogarts.
That is really cool. That's a really cool. I didn't even see that. I didn't see that, but that's super cool. And I think it's funny because it happens to a guy who's from the Netherlands or who has like Dutch ties to him. And like we
Mm-hmm.
always think of the players from the Dutch being very like they speak like a million different languages, and it's just fitting that Xander Bogaerts is the guy to do that. So, um,
Yeah,
that's a really cool note, actually.
yeah, yeah. I thought that was pretty cool when I saw it, and I thought it's so unique, and hopefully that list grows with more international series.
Mhm.
But yeah, that's pretty awesome, and and the crowds were pretty awesome down in Mexico. And there's guess what, everybody, a new rule involving some fan involvement in Major League Baseball. I don't know if you've read or seen this, Steven, but MLB is now asking teams to give them at least 24 hours notice if they anticipate a potential ovation for a player so that they can pause the pitch clock. Like one of the things that I've always loved about baseball is like the organic, nature of the game. And now you're asking teams to plan ovations ahead of time. I guess they can't trust their umpires enough to just read the damn room and understand if there's someone who deserves an ovation, and just don't call freaking pitch clock violation on the first pitch of the at bat. It's not that hard. Sorry, it just really pissed me off. That's just so stupid. And yet another rule they're adding. I don't get it.
I am 100% in agreement with you. And I think we saw this on two occasions last week with Cody Bellinger returning to LA, and Bellinger, a guy who a big part in really good Dodger teams over the years. And he
Mhm.
got a violation, and then Drew Maggi, who we featured last episode, made his debut in Pittsburgh, and he gets a violation. And we saw it at the beginning of the year, before the year with Romo. Here's the thing, like this is 100% should be an umpire like judgment thing. And I think the umpires, like as much as they've been very by the book as they should be, I think an umpire would like understand the moment. I would hope so. I mean, they're obviously working
Yeah.
a game. They know enough about the sport. They're baseball men. Um, this should be completely their call. And I think it's weird that you have to plan 24 hours for an ovation. And also what I was thinking about is that what if a guy like, has a curtain call, right? And the next batter's up. That is not something you could prepare for. So like is that a judgment call by the umpire? Like I
Well, yeah. Stuff that happens in that game, like a guy makes a diving catch to like end an inning in a big spot, and he leads off the next inning. If he's getting a nice,
Mhm.
applause from the crowd, you're just going to cut that moment off because Rob Manfred wants a pitch every 15 seconds. It's so stupid. Like,
Yeah.
read the room. It's not that hard to understand and be like, okay, this is a moment. We should let that happen.
Yeah,
I
it's amazing. And MLB like promoted the Drew Maggi moment on their page, and they probably edited out the pitch clock violation, but they like promote an ovation. Apparently that's on, and I just don't get it. No, I'm right there with you. And I also think that like Major League Baseball needs to figure out a way to add more common sense stuff into the game. And I think the pitch clock is a great example where there are plenty of common sense things that you could include. Plenty of common sense moments that I've seen watching the pitch clock where it's like, okay, pitch com was off. And they had to put in a rule for a pitch com screw up when I thought that could be pretty much self-explanatory too. But for the ovations, I think that's pretty lame. 24 hours in advance. Um,
Yeah.
I, it doesn't make
Did
any
you hear
sense.
about like how this kind of apparently it's something that's like relatively new and people noticed it because Teoscar Hernandez returned to Toronto, got a standing ovation. He played there for like I think 6 years before
Mhm.
he got traded to the Mariners, and so they gave him like the standing ovation before the his first at bat, and they didn't call a pitch clock violation. And after the game, they talked to John Schneider, and that's where like the news came out. They're like, "Oh yeah, baseball is letting us like basically submit a request for a standing ovation now."
Oh my God. So the Blue Jays did it
It's
by the
just
book.
so it
Yeah. The Blue Jays were
yeah
the first team to like play by the rules and also I think it like gives it like gives the indication that the umpires have no control over the pitch clock. It's like, yeah, the pitch clock is more powerful than the umpires. Um
yeah.
and
You know what you do? You send the catcher out in front of the plate like they usually do if they're a good catcher to kind of not be behind the plate. Have him and the umpire just looking at each other, read the room, and don't start the pitch clock until the catcher starts walking back to get behind the plate or
Mhm.
something. Like it's not that hard to coordinate. Almost like the umpire like walking out to the mound to kill a plate visit.
Mhm.
Have him wait, give them enough time, let the moment breathe, have the umpire give the catcher a little motion, get him behind the plate. It's not that hard.
It makes you wonder if the umpires even have control over the pitch clock. Because like if they did, it's a slap in the face to them too. It's like,
Yeah.
yeah, you guys don't have like the heart or soul to understand what a big moment is, so we'll handle it.
Yeah.
What?
Yeah, it's yeah.
Oh,
Anyway, I just thought that was ridiculous. But anyway, let's move on. A couple I guess we'll combine a couple of these, but there are a couple big returns happening in baseball. One of them just happened yesterday, and then a couple coming over the next couple days. But the two that talk I will bring up first are the Mets, who we talked about a week or two ago, having struggles with their pitching staff, are going to get their two horses back. Scherzer coming back from his suspension, which we talked about, and Justin Verlander making his Mets debut. I think he's making that tomorrow. So both of those guys coming back is huge for this team.
And back in Detroit too, right? So they
Yeah, yeah,
are,
in Detroit, where they took the team to the World Series over a decade ago, just to kind of illustrate that longevity these guys have had.
yeah, this is a big get for the Mets. Big, big, big getting him back. No doubt about it. And those two guys, like we mentioned, are so important to the Mets' success. And without them, the Mets rotation does not look deep. And I think,
No,
anytime you could get them, especially in a postseason series, which is what they're aiming for, they are on the roster to pitch in postseason series. Um,
yeah,
and if they could get, 25 starts, 20, 23, 24, 25 starts out of those guys each, then I think you'd consider it a win. 80 years old combined, basically.
yeah. If you give them,
Um,
if you can get them to start that many games and have them healthy heading into October, that's exactly what they want to do.
yes, you will be in a good spot if that happens. And
I think that's why in our preseason show, I think I picked the Mets to come out of the National League, and the biggest part of that was Scherzer and Verlander. So
mhm.
it's a lot of banking on them being healthy come October. But if they're healthy in the playoffs, I don't know if there's a scarier 1-2 punch to face in a series.
Yeah, I don't think so either. I don't think I can't think of one in the National League at all. I'm trying to think. I don't think so. I don't think
Yeah,
there is one. So yeah, no, it's good to have those guys back. And um, I think another thing that we talked about Jacob deGrom this offseason too, and we'll get to Robbie Ray in a second, but deGrom now has the forearm tightness, and I heard
the
this.
dreaded forearm tightness. That's
Yeah,
never the combo you want to hear.
I heard this on the way. I forgot where I was driving, and I was listening to Sirius XM, MLB Network Radio, which is great, great listen. And they had brought it up, and I was not surprised. I don't get surprised by a Jacob deGrom injury anymore. And you're just banking on him because when he's on the field, he's obviously one of the best in the game. Um, but he just, for whatever reason, he can't stay healthy. He's just not
Yeah,
somebody that you could rely on consistently to make consistent starts in a season. And until that changes, that's his label,
yeah, yeah.
and
You know, and
it's a
The
detriment.
Mets had DeGrom. They could have locked him up over the last several years. They could have signed him this offseason. And I don't even think there was ever really much rumors of like a big DeGrom extension possible with the Mets. I think they were always a little wary of it too. It does suck. It's like one of those guys, if they could just be healthy, what could their career look like? And he hasn't had a bad career at all. Don't get me wrong, but
Mhm.
like if you could take the injuries out and just keep the guy on the mound, he is unbelievable.
Yeah,
So
and
yeah,
yeah, and it's like not even like fluke injuries either. Like, some guys go down with like a hamstring pull, and then they hurt their shoulder, and then they have something with their blister or something. These are like big time injuries, like hip
yeah,
and arm and elbow and flexor. Like, these are some big time injuries, and I wonder how long it is until it takes a complete toll on the guy. But um, yeah, I mean the Rangers completely built the rotation in free agency, and again, it might be worth the reward based on what he gives you when you're healthy, when he's healthy, but is he ever going to be healthy?
yeah, yeah. The $1 million, I guess the $240 million question or whatever it was for
Man,
him.
oh man. Yeah.
Um, and then yeah, another big arm going down. He was injured previously already, and they thought he was going to come back, but Robbie Ray is now out for the season with his I think it was a shoulder for Robbie Ray, and so obviously that's a big blow for the Mariners. He was Cy Young a couple years
Mhm.
ago. Uh, I think he was a big reason I chose the Mariners to win the division because I thought they could have him as an anchor and then have a couple other guys step up. And so losing him for a young team like that is a tough blow.
Yeah, this one sucks. I think this one hurts even more than DeGrom in terms of the team because the
Oh,
Mariners
definitely.
have been, I've been a little disappointed in the Mariners start, but I'm not gone on them completely, but um like I think Robbie Ray, because Robbie Ray last year we saw times where his velocity was down and his stuff looked bad and he was walking guys. And then, this year his velocity was up. It looked like he was trending in the right direction, then he gets hurt. And a team like the Mariners need a guy like that. And I think Luis Castillo makes what he's doing even better. He's, thrown six, he started 6 games and he's got a sub 2 ERA. He's looked great, but it's almost like Ray would be the perfect. And we're talking about 1-2 punches with Verlander and Scherzer.
Yeah.
That would be a good one too if all goes right. Ray and Castillo as kind of an underrated 1-2 punch in a series. But yeah, that's a
Yeah.
big blow. Ray's another guy that's getting hurt a little
Yeah,
bit more
I think
often.
that would be like a dark horse under the, scary 1-2 that no one would really give them the credit they deserve if they're both healthy. But yeah,
And he's out for the year.
yep, he is done for 2023. So, um, and then, I mean, you can't have one of the best players in baseball get injured without talking about it. But Aaron Judge has a mild hip strain. I did read right before we jumped on, Steven. They're hopeful that he'll be able to return on May 8th, which would be his first day eligible to return. So just potentially a few more days coming back. I think it happened on that weird slide. Did you see the slide where he hurt himself? It was almost reminding me of that Buster Posey slide into third that you see every once in a while.
Yeah, in
It
Miami.
just, you know,
Yeah, I did see
yeah,
the slide.
I hardly ever slid head first because I was worried I would do that.
Yeah, and a guy like him who's so big, like it's so easy to get like tangled up. And obviously he slid and
Yeah, a lot of moving parts there.
yeah, something stopped and his looked like his legs almost went like you could see obviously the hip impact of it, but I'm glad that it wasn't his
Yeah,
elbow or something. Um, but obviously a hip for a big guy, anything for a big guy like him, especially when it's like a foundational part of your
yeah.
body, like lower body, hip, it's a little bit more scary. But he was the only Yankee that was really hitting. The Yankees just have not
It's
been.
just like last year. I mean,
Yeah.
if you take his bat out of the lineup last year, the Yankees weren't that good offensively. And so you kind of see that again now that he's not even in the lineup. It kind of shines a big spotlight on it for a lot of people.
Yeah, and you won't get Stanton back until June. You won't get Donaldson back until like mid-May. There's a gap there in New York, and for the most part, Judge was playing a little bit of center. He's playing right too, but that's a blow. Hopefully, he'll be back in the 10 days though. So
Yeah. Yeah, which is just a few days away. Where this for those listening and even care, it's Wednesday the 3rd in the evening time. So maybe just a few more days missed for Judge. And the probably the most anticipated. Well, I don't know. We just had Tatis return, but biggest anticipated return from off-season injury in baseball. Most people expected him back sometime in July after the All-Star break, and Bryce Harper is already back in the lineup for the Philadelphia Phillies 160 days after Tommy John surgery, and he's playing Major League Baseball.
I I am so like impressed by this, and like I've always been a big Bryce Harper fan. And I think just his mindset and the way he goes about baseball is just second to none in my mind. And he's done a lot of growing up and but to read some of the reporting that was done on, his recovery back to baseball has been exceptional. Like this guy is a baseball rat. Since he was 16 years old, he's been a baseball rat. And, when he got the surgery, I don't think he was ever thinking July. I don't think he ever had a. I'm sure he was probably at one point hoping for opening day, and they had to say Bryce, chill. And then I read
Yeah,
something a few days ago where it's like Bryce Harper's willing to play first base if it means he could be back in the lineup quicker. And like, there's nothing you could do but tip your hat, to a guy that with that mindset. And obviously he's DHing. He's wearing the protection on his arm so that that doesn't get dinged up. But it's impressive, and the Phillies they needed a boost in their lineup, and I think you mentioned it like at the beginning. Like once they start getting guys back, the Phillies become pretty scary again. And Harper's kind of one of those guys that will scare the bejesus out of you, especially when he's in that lineup with some of the guys protecting him. But I'm impressed. I can't say enough about what I've read during this entire process, and for him to come back after not a very long time for Tommy John is insanity. So that it's crazy. I didn't think I'd see the
Yeah,
day.
I mean, yeah, I mean, it's not like he's out there pitching or throwing or anything, but
Mhm.
still, when the best doctors in the country are saying it's going to be probably mid to end July before he can return. And so he beats that by 2.5, 3 months almost. That's just insane. And, a lot of it is, like you said, his drive to be on the field and be playing baseball. And, he had a little bit of a rough start yesterday. He went 0 for 4. Today he went 3 for 3 with 2 walks. So, I mean, just, a guy that you can count on, and to see a guy get on base 5 times in a game, and you're not really that surprised about it. So just adding that into a lineup can be huge. And, they haven't really played to their potential yet this year. I think they're hovering right around 500. And so not even just having his bat, but having his bat in the lineup to help elevate the other bats that have kind of had some tough times, picking up the slack while he's been out is huge. So, I
Yeah.
mean, I
And
don't think
based on what I've
anyone
heard
wants
about
to.
Tommy John too, based on what I've heard about like the surgery, like, you know, guys right after they get it, obviously there's the swelling in your elbow and in your, down your arm and into your fingers. And, once that kind of like pins and needles effect goes away and then you rest a little bit, like I feel like this operation could turn into, and for pitchers it's obviously different, but this operation could honestly turn into something like an ACL tear, where, guys tear their ACL and they're on a stationary bike within the week, after the
Mm-hmm.
surgery. But he might be, blazing a trail here for position players in recovery.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, was kind of reminded me, just reading about his comeback a little bit, just to tie it into another sport. It was the Brock Purdy injury, because they weren't sure
Hmm.
if he was going to need Tommy John surgery, and if he did, they were trying to figure out the timeline. People were like, well, he's going to be gone, 12 to 18 months like a pitcher, and it's like, well, no, there's different mechanics.
Yeah.
So maybe just think of that too. Obviously, like we said, Harper's not throwing the baseball yet, but doesn't matter. That's damn impressive to be basically 5 months out of Tommy John and playing
And what's
Major League
even more, yeah,
Baseball.
and
So,
what's even more impressive is that he's still rehabbing. Like you just said the throwing part. He's still got to do that on the side. So not only are you involved in a Major League Baseball game, hitting, you are still responsible for getting ready to
play
be
the other
an
half of the game.
outfielder. Yeah, to be an outfielder at some point by the end of the year. So, um, like it's almost like you're rehabbing, but also getting live at bats at the same time. So
Yeah.
it's an impressive thing.
Yes. I
Um,
mean, he's one of those guys where it's so good for baseball to have him in the game. So, he's a polarizing guy. I feel like he's one of those guys who either love him or you hate him. And so those guys are always good to have around the game too. So, I'm glad he's back. I know you are. He's one of
mhm.
your 3 jerseys. It's not a giant.
That's right. McCutchen, Trout, and Bryce Harper as a national. Um,
Yeah.
yeah,
OG Bryce Harper.
OG Bryce Harper, definitely. Um, And I guess we do have our 3 up, 3 down segment. I've heard some feedback from a listener that said that they really like the segment.
Oh,
And 3 up,
nice.
3 down has been a success, I think too.
Thanks, Steven's mom, our one listener. Thank you for the
Yeah,
feedback.
big fan. She talks about it all the time. She loves you. No. Um, so I guess we could start with the ups, and Tyler, that's you this week.
Yeah, so 3 up, 3 down. For first up, obviously 3 up. So my first one, and this is more of like a recap for the first month of the season. This has changed slightly in the last couple days with the Phillies losing a couple, but East Coast baseball, every team in the East except for the Nationals in the were above 500 through the first month of the year. That's a lot of competitive baseball. I kind of alluded to it earlier that the Yankees that have a winning record and their fans are acting like the sky is falling, and because they're in last place. And, that just speaks to the quality of baseball that they're getting on the East Coast right now. So first up is East Coast baseball, and East Coast baseball fans, you got to be happy with what you're seeing.
Mhm.
And you can even say, as a Nationals fan, a lot of people said it was going to be like they were going to be in a dog race with the A's to see who was the worst team in baseball. and they have, I think, 10 or 11 wins already, which, isn't a ton, but it's all 12 wins already. I think they still, even though they don't have a winning record, they're probably happy with where they are too. So East Coast fans, even if you're with the Nats, you got to be stoked. So that's first up. Up number two, I'm going with Sonny Gray, who's been. I kind of cut you. I didn't let you talk. Your thoughts on East Coast baseball, Steve?
Yeah, no, East
I
Coast
just got.
baseball. Shout out to East Coast baseball. Good job. No,
Sorry, dude.
no. And one other thing just to add there, like this time of year, the big thing about the East Coast is the weather. And for these teams to be performing well under those circumstances, like where I was talking about
Mm-hmm.
the rainouts and how bad the weather is and how cold it is on the East Coast in April, I guess it makes it even more that it makes it even that more impressive. So
Yeah. So sorry, I blew right past you there. I didn't even. I just
blowing the
got on a
roof off this
roll,
place.
blowing the roof off of this place. But yeah, number two for me is going to be Sonny Gray. I mean, he's one of those guys. He's not. It's not surprising that he's putting good stretches together, but I feel like he's to start the year off the way he has. He's got to be one of my ups. And since we recorded last, 13 innings pitched, only giving up 8 hits, 1 run, and 15 strikeouts on the year. He still hasn't lost. I know record's kind of a whatever, but you're not going to lose many games when your ERA on the year is 0.77 and you have a WHIP just above 1. And so he's really helped anchor that Minnesota Twins staff and got them in first place right now in the Central.
Watch out for the Twins. They're taking advantage of this Chicago White Sox downfall. That's pretty legit. And we've wondered about their pitching. And I also keep thinking about when I see Sonny Gray, my mind is so still wrapped up with the A's in recent weeks that I always think of like what happens if the A's like had all those guys still, all the players that they once got rid of, like what would their team look like? And Sonny Gray, obviously, it's hard to argue he'd be that ace. So
Yeah. Yeah.
long time
So
ago though.
yeah. 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 And so that's why I'm kind of I know he's got it in him, so I'm not ever surprised when he puts on a good stretch, but that he's like still doing it after this many years is awesome to see. And then my up number three, I'm going with Brent Rooker, Oakland A's outfielder, probably the one bright spot for the A's this year. Um, you know, 5 home runs in the last week, 9 on the year already. I just think it's pretty crazy to see that kind of production anywhere, but at least he's given the A's fans something to cheer about. And so he's my third up. Have you been able to watch him play much at all?
Yeah, a little bit. I've seen him wandering around the fantasy transaction lists. Um, but it's funny because Brent Rooker, I actually shout out to Ethan Castle, who might be listening, but he is the sports editor at the Examiner, or sorry, sports editor at the Standard, SF Standard, and I sat next to him at a recent Giants game, and Brent Rooker was brought up, and I asked about him. I was like, what's your scouting report on Brent Rooker? And Ethan is a big A's fan too, and he said that a lot of power, a lot of power. Maybe not, maybe still a lot of swing and miss, but a lot of
Yeah,
power.
looks like it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, 9 home runs, like you said, already a career high. Um, any bright spot the A's could salvage is going to help. So, big start for him.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. So that's my three up. And I do want to throw one that just kind of popped into my head that so I made this list a couple days ago, and this kind of just broke right before we recorded anyway. But honorary fourth up, or I guess third A up. I mean, we've been trying to do these perfect immaculate innings, but Liam Hendriks starts his rehab assignment.
Mhm.
Beating cancer and getting to report back. And he wore a shirt today at his, I think, at a press conference that said like struck out cancer or something like that. So you know even though it's not full, not on the field related, an honorary up to Liam Hendriks. Awesome to see him coming back.
Definitely. And I saw somewhere where he mentioned that he might have pitched with, what did he have, lymphoma or something like that?
Mm-hmm.
He might have pitched
Non-Hodgkin's lymphoma. Yeah.
he might have pitched with that in his system last year, which is insanity. But yeah, definitely wishes to him for a quick recovery. He's one of baseball's fun personalities.
Yeah,
Um,
awesome personality. Some of the clips where he's like mic'd up, like at the All-Star game last year, just having fun. Those are my favorite guys to watch. And so awesome to see him, strike out cancer and making his way back to the field.
yeah, he's
So
definitely
that's my. Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
definitely one of the bright spots. I think if he comes back for that White Sox team, they need a bright spot.
Yeah, yeah, they do. So that's my three plus ups, Steven. So three down. Where are we at?
Yeah, I'll add in a small minus down or whatever, plus down. I don't know. Just real quick because it came to my mind too. I brought them up a few times. The White Sox, like they have to be a down this first month. This first month, just I don't know what's not clicking for them. They can never stay on the field at the same time. When they are, it seems like they don't play good together. I don't know what it is,
Oh
but
man, was it Robert who had that like ridiculous ground out where he was basically just like jogging to first?
yeah, I mean, we brought up
Oh
Javier
man.
Baez, and that's not a good look unless unless you have, you know, unless you're in an X-ray machine, or you're in an MRI machine or whatever it is, then that's inexcusable. If you're healthy and a guy of his caliber who's very athletic and can easily beat that out. So that's not fun. But my first down is going to be the NL West. And we were expecting giant things from this division. Um, no pun intended. That didn't come out right. We were expecting big things from this division. And nothing has really cultivated. The Dodgers have kind of taken over in recent days. They are leading the division with a record of 18 and 13 at the time of this recording. And then the Diamondbacks have played well too. They've obviously been a few games over 500. We're excited about their pitching and their outfield. And then from there, it's kind of been, the Padres haven't gotten going. It seems like they haven't played well despite the big names. The Giants have kind of been a disappointment. I think their additions, especially from the offseason, Haniger's been hurt. Conforto has gone through stretches where he's been hurt. Stripling and Manai have not pitched well. Rogers in the bullpen from the left side has not pitched well. So there's been a few things that have gone on, but I expected this to be a pretty dominant division. But I will say, I mentioned the recent surge for the Dodgers. It could turn into kind of what we're expecting, based on that trend, because obviously we knew the Dodgers would be at the top, but the main thing here is San Diego. Like the main thing for me is San Diego, and I guess
Hmm.
it's a matter of when they get going. So that's what I'm going to look for the next few weeks.
Yeah, the Dodgers are finally starting to get hot, six in a row for them. But the crazy thing is that, like you said, the whole division is, I think this is why they're probably a down for you, is the whole division's just been so bad that you were talking about how the Padres have struggled and not really got it going, and they're only 2 games out of first.
Yeah,
So, I mean, it's still anybody's division, unless you're the Rockies, let's be honest. But I mean, but yeah, I mean, so the Padres and Dodgers are probably the two that most people are thinking are going to be the class of this division. And so that, if one of them can get hot, which it might be the Dodgers right now, if one of them can get hot like a week and a half before the other team can get it going, that could be huge, come the stretch.
yeah, no doubt about it. Can't wait for better baseball in that series. I think it's going to make for a nice booming, booming. Where was I going with that? Booming. Forget it. I don't even- I feel
Booming,
like,
booming, booming.
yeah, every episode we have these moments. Um, Number
Every
two,
episode, you have these
I have
moments.
these moments. Me, yeah. I think a few weeks ago I said Nick Castellanos' back got checked, and that happened like 3 years ago. I was reading the wrong article. Um, that was pretty rough.
Yeah.
My number two is Mauricio Dubon, and we kind of like to sneak in a little bit of these Giants, subjects here, but this is one that was interesting. Mauricio Dubon basically showed up the entire Giants organization, by having a 3-hit game against them, but the show up part happened after the game when he talked about, uh, I think he said, "quote I was not treated well over there, so it was nice to have a game like this." And I've been kind of like very reserved because obviously, you don't want to tell a player how to feel. If he's feeling that way and this was a big moment for him to have 3 hits, like nobody's going to question that. I'm sure it was a big moment for him, and I'm sure he did maybe feel that way. However, um, when you go public with it, and a guy like Dubon, and I also hate to take the stance of, you're not good enough to talk. I hate that. But in this case, I feel like that's the stance that you got to take,
Yeah.
you know? And if you're Mauricio
Yeah.
Dubon, you shouldn't be talking about this because you had over 500 plate appearances with the Giants organization. They traded for you. They gave you a chance in the big leagues. They stuck with you through your, miscues base running wise, your miscues defensively, your below average offense. And they trade you. They could have released you. They could have tried to keep you in the organization. They trade you to a really good situation in Houston. And then you go and talk about how they treated you bad. And again, we don't know what happened behind the scenes. I'm not going to tell the guy how he should be feeling. I'm just talking about the comments and the fact that he made the comments publicly. It's not a good look in my mind. And again, they stuck up for him when he laid down that bunt with the big lead against San Diego. And I
Mm-hmm.
guarantee everybody on that team, not everybody, but a lot of guys on that team probably didn't feel like sticking up for him and did it anyways. So, I mean, he owes a lot to that organization, at least from my eyes. He's a fan favorite. And it was almost like he showed them up, and
Yeah.
it's not like you deserve respect everywhere you go when you're a name like Mauricio Dubon. That's not how it works. And you're playing
Yeah.
in Houston because Altuve's hurt. I don't know.
You
And again,
know, it's amazing what a 20 game hit streak will do to your confidence.
yeah, yeah. Like
I
you're
mean,
not, and Mark DeRosa said, "Look, you're not Bryce Harper. You Nobody's rolling out the red carpet. Nobody's rolling out the red carpet in Houston for Mauricio Dubon. Sorry, it's just not happening. Like no knock on the guy, great
yeah.
guy, a guy who could be a great role player on this team and has done that pretty well. But it's not a good look when stay humble. That's all I have to say. And I hate taking the road of telling a guy how he should feel, saying what he should be doing, but and again, I hate saying that he's
I
not good
mean,
enough to
yeah.
talk, but he's not.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, I don't know. I
Yeah,
don't
I
know.
mean, some of the comments that he made like after too, it made it sound like when his reference was just like not getting enough opportunity. And if you look at the opportunities the Giants did give him, they're notorious for sending guys up and down. So it's not, yeah, they used up a lot of his options, whatever. If you want to become a big leaguer, you got to, take your lumps,
Mm.
which sucks, but that's what they sign up for. But he spent a lot of time in the big leagues. I forget who I saw earlier, and someone sent me some like a comp of like that's more his number of plate appearances with the Giants. He's like, well, that's more than Kevin Franzen. So when you think of like how long Kevin Franzen played for the Giants, Mauricio Dubon had more plate appearances than Kevin Franzen. So it's not like they just like gave him 150, 200 looks and was just like, okay, you're out of here. He just straight up didn't perform for the Giants. And sometimes a guy just needs a change of scenery. Obviously something wasn't clicking here. And like you said, I don't know. Obviously, they couldn't have traded him to a better situation because he won a World Series last year. So it's not like they embarrassed him by
Mm.
saying you're cut. They found a good, no one was like, okay, they got Mike Papierski back for him, so it was a great deal. They looked for a good situation to at least send him to, and they did that to him for him. And so it does kind of suck that like he has to try to say that like he could have played this well all along, but the Giants, didn't give him the playing time. It's like
Yeah.
you sucked last year in Houston too, bro. I think you hit like 180. So
Yeah,
I
he didn't have
mean,
a postseason
obviously
at
some,
bat. Yeah.
yeah, they didn't even, and so like, obviously you've made some adjustments, so awesome. I do hope he keeps doing well. I mean, he's a Sacramento kid. It sucks that like he feels like he needs to talk shit on the organization once he's finally doing well. It's not like he said it when he was hitting, 150 in September last year for the Astros. He waits till he has like a little 20 game hit streak, which is really impressive, has a solid game against the Giants. And then he decides to like do it then. It kind of reminded me of Pablo feeling like he had to talk
Hmm.
bad about the organization on his way out. And Pablo's like a franchise icon. And so, And then what I think over the last 2 games that the Astros lost, Dubon led off both games and went like 1 for 8 or 1 for 9. So
Yeah.
let's reel it in a little. Let's stay humble, as Steven said, and dude, just keep building on your success.
And this goes
Don't
for all, yeah, this goes for all baseball. But if you're not playing, if you're a baseball player that's not playing in Major League Baseball and you have no playing time for any of these teams, usually there's a reason. Okay. Usually there's a reason why Mauricio Dubon was not getting everyday at bats, righties, lefties alike in San Francisco. Like there's a reason for it. And if a guy goes to a different city and puts up numbers and somebody says, "Oh, why did you trade him?" It's probably because that guy got, made some adjustments. Baseball's a game of adjustments, and I think we forget that guys make them all the time. Like Max Muncy, like, are we going to blame the A's for, and I know we blame the A's for a lot of things here, but are we going to get mad at them for getting rid of Max Muncy, who at the time was going to be really not a big impact guy? Like at some point,
yeah.
Max Muncy had to take it into himself and improve. And Dubon,
Justin
yeah.
Turner, another guy who had he was started with the Mets, never
Hmm.
really performed, got picked up by the Dodgers and figured it out.
Yeah, great example. And like Dubon still, we all know that he's, yeah, with the hitting streak, but his numbers are still like very much league average. He's not drawing walks. He never has. He's not hitting for power. He's
Yeah.
hitting singles all over the place, which is good for
A
some situations.
very
But
high a very high batting average on balls in play, which eventually that will correct itself to an extent,
yeah, and
So
I didn't
like
envision
I said, I
spending
hope
that
he keeps
much
doing
time on
well. It's
Doobie.
just
Yeah,
I
but
know, but
it
that's
was
what
on my
happens when you
mind.
have two Giants guys and we get on the topic. So
It was on my mind. And then I
but
guess to
hey,
finish it off,
what's about 3 down?
yeah, three down exactly. And then I guess to finish off real quickly, I'll be brief with this one. Um, if you had, this is more of a bone to pick, with people playing fantasy baseball. If you're in a fantasy baseball league and you're going to offer me a trade, do not offer a trade where it's like a catcher for another catcher. Okay? Because more times than not, there's going to be a loser in that trade. Like one of the catchers is going to be better, right? And what's the point of making a
Mm-hmm.
trade where it's like, I'm going to trade you this position for the same position? Because at that point, you're trying to rip someone off. Okay. So I'm sick of seeing
Yeah, it's
a
never
starting.
not
Yeah.
not at least in a 1 for 1.
Yeah.
In like a one
I'm
for one, yeah, that just doesn't make sense.
This week, I have seen
The
a catcher for a
the
catcher
change of
trade.
scenery, the change of scenery bit doesn't work in fantasy baseball. Like maybe he'll play better for your team, Steven. That's not how it works, everybody.
Yeah. I have gotten a request for a catcher for a catcher.
But you were
Okay.
saying you've seen a catcher for catcher.
And a starting pitcher for starting pitcher, one for one. It's like somebody is bad. Like the guy, like easily, somebody is better in that package. Like somebody's winning and losing before you
Yeah.
even accept or decline the trade. Fantasy baseball trades are so dependent on needs, and if you have just like an influx
See, that's
of
my
talent.
biggest, yeah, my biggest
Mhm.
annoyance in fantasy trades is like they make a trade offer based off their needs without looking at your needs. It's like at
Yes.
least make it something that I'd be interested in. Like I'm in a league where I have like two solid shortstops and I got offered like CJ Crawford as part of a deal. Or I don't think it's CJ. I think I just jacked that
Abrams.
up. But they offered, yeah, they offered me a shortstop when I'm already too deep and I can't even play both of those guys every night. So it's like, no, like look at what I need too. Like I'm down to make a deal. I'm down to trade you that guy, but like not for what you offered me.
Yeah.
Um, and then believe me, dude, I've seen some really dumb offers this year because one of them's my auction keeper league. So like I got him super cheap in the auction this year, so I can keep him for a couple of years, very cheap. And as people started to realize he was coming back soon, I just started getting like at least 2 or 3 stupid offers a week of like, now this guy and this guy for Bryce Harper. I was like, I wanted him when I thought he was going to be out until the end of July. Now he's going to be back at the beginning of May. And now you think I want to move him for like Tristan McKenzie, who's gone for who knows how long too, and then like an outfielder. I was just like, come on, be better than that. So yeah, it's always frustrating. I always try to be look at like the needs of both teams and try to at least make it reasonable. But I feel like a lot of guys just throw something out there hoping it'll stick somewhere.
Yeah, it's like you have good starting pitching depth, and I have a third second baseman that you need. Let's do that. Instead of Brady Singer had a bad start. Let's see if we could do Brady Singer for Joe Musgrove. Like somebody is losing that trade. Like, yeah.
Yeah.
So I just have to, and that sounds like a segment in and of itself where we just rant about stuff that we've seen. Like, but
Right.
um,
I'll start keeping notes on offers instead of just declining them right away.
yeah, exactly. Uh, Yeah, that's a scam, complete scam for fantasy baseball purposes. Anyways, I think we shut it down.
We shut it down yet again. 20. We made it through 7.
We have made yes, that's right. 7 inning. We're almost to
So,
a complete game
yeah.
on our
That's
own.
we
Yeah.
got it. We're there. But yeah, man, we're a month in. It's been a lot of fun. Hopefully, the listeners are having fun too. Thank you to all 8 of you. Um, what are your.
First month, yeah, we're gonna keep this going. This is a blast. Like Rizzo Cast, I have not had a podcast since early April. So I've been busy, but I've still had time for this, and it's been a blast. And I love the
Yeah,
current landscape of baseball and how the news comes out. And this is where we get to do a deep dive into it. So it's been fun.
yeah, it's been a lot of fun. So yeah, thank you, man. And yeah, you can just so we don't drop the wrong podcast here, you can find us anywhere you consume your podcast, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, etc. YouTube, on Twitter, we are at shutdown_inning. Um,
Our link
I'm
tree is the
Tyler
Say Hey
Hall for
Pod.
Steven Risotto.
Yeah.
Uh, yeah, jeez,
Uh,
yeah. Catch us on Coffee in the Cove, and that's what's up.